So all alone, with no mother this time, I drove from the main turnpike down to Connecticut, as I told you. And where did I go to live? Again, the YWCA, and it was in New Haven. It's quite a ways from New Haven to Seymour, Connecticut, where the head inn was. And I was all anxious to get unload my equipment and get started. But the wealthy owner of this cable TV system wanted me to come to the house and play tennis. He had his own tennis court. And I didn't want to do that, but I did. Eventually, I got up to the TV head end, up on the top of Great Hill Road, a great big mountain, honey. And I got up there, and it's wooded, heavily wooden. And the woods in Connecticut are so thick. They're so voluminous. And so I had a key, and there was nobody there. And I opened the door and went into the TV studio. And these alarms started to ring. And the next thing I knew, the police were there. And I was all alone. And I was a robber to them. But I explained who I was, and of course, the first thing I did was to interview them, make a video of it for TV. So that was a grand way to start. And the building had not started. He intended to make a building up there on top of the mountain for the head end. So everything was in trailers. There was a trailer for the office, there was a trailer for technical, there was a trailer for my studio, and where I was going to cable cast the programs from, and for the engineers. It was a quite elaborate setup and quite big in personnel. There were a couple of secretaries, there were a couple of engineers, there were a couple of bookkeepers, there were 3 or 4 technical people. There was a general manager. It went on and on. And with these trailers, when you went home at night, you never knew. Everything was on wheels, and you never knew the next day if was it going to be there when you got back. Now, my friend is going to prompt me. Just read one prompt after another. Could you do that, hon?
Yeah, the house in downtown Derby.
What was that, dear?
The house in downtown Derby.
Oh, I had a beautiful apartment on the second floor in a house, but it was right on Route 10, and you heard traffic, and there were traffic lights. It was a beautiful apartment, and I told the lovely man who rented it to me, I just couldn't stand the traffic there all night long and all day long.
My mother came. She was so happy.
And then I found an apartment, and my mother came and stayed with me, and she was so happy. She loved having that apartment and loved doing whatever she wanted to do. Even though we only had a card table to eat on, we didn't. But it was nice.
6 months.
What, dear?
6 months.
6 what?
Months. Like January, February, March, a month.
Oh, yes. Can I say that until later?
Yeah.
That belongs to the end, honey. Would you remind us to go back to 6 months?
Yes. Good rapport.
That's how long the contract was with Mr. Reynolds. There really wasn't any contracts. It was a gentleman and a lady agreement. What was that prompt, dear?
Good rapport.
I had great rapport with Mr. Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds had 2 sons, Jeffrey, and his name was George. What was the son? And it was his dream. He got into, with all the money that he had, he decided to invest it in cable television. And his dream was to leave a cable TV system to his son Jeffrey. That was the one where I was in Connecticut. And another one to his son up in Hudson, New York.
General manager.
Yeah, we had a general manager and we had all that personnel I told you about.
CPUC.
What was that, dear?
CPUC.
Oh, in Connecticut, the cable television was regulated by the Connecticut Public Utilities Commission. In New York State, it was regulated by the New York's Cable TV Commission. So there's a great difference in operation.
Helper and volunteer.
Oh, I had a lovely young man volunteer. He was so good and such a very promising youth. Very polite and very smart and very good in schoolwork. One prompt after another, huh?
High school football.
Jeffrey Reynolds had some of the public access. He covered the high school football. And he had an assistant. And it was through them that I had to buy another Sony piece of equipment. So back to Mackie Barron to buy a Sony 3/4 inch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
$375 paycheck.
Yes. And I had to buy this Sony 3/4 inch U-matic. That was when the U-matic came out. Tape went from reel to reel, folks, to being in a cassette and unwinding and winding itself and rewinding itself. And that was the big thing, and I had to go with that format change because my Sony Porter Pack was reel to reel and little reels, a little 1/2 inch reels. And so I had to buy this equipment. And of course, Mr. Reynolds had no reason to pay for it because I came in there as a packager, right? Complete. Anything else, sweet?
Not for that year, no.
And now can we tell them about the 6 months?
Yes, now we can.
Well, everything went along. They even started a news program. I was doing all of the social activities very successfully. Somebody left a dog on Great Hill Road. Instead of finding a home for the dog that they didn't want, they opened the car door and left the dog in the woods and then drove off. And we would get up and down Great Hill, and there would be this dog. And this dog was by the roadside. It seemed very suspicious that that dog didn't have a home. And sure enough, that dog was living on its own in the woods, all by itself.
Oh, no.
Yes. And we started feeding the dog. And then I said, I'm not going to stand this any longer. I'm going to go rescue that dog. So my assistant, Freddie, and I went and rescued the dog and brought... And of course it looked terrible with me coming out of the woods every day with Freddie. And so I put that dog in the back seat of the 1950 Dodge. And the dog was docile and forlorn. And I found a home for him.
Aww.
A beautiful home, a very rich home for him. Way up on the top of the ridge in Seymour, Connecticut. Okay, so the contract or the agreement with Mr. Reynolds was that I would be there 6 months. Well, everything was going so well, and we had a good relationship, and everybody was so pleased, and I was cable casting programs and doing my work. And Mr. Reynolds notified me that the 6 months were up. And I had met his requirement. Everything was fine, but this would be the end. Well, we started sending out letters. Again, as a packager of public access TV. And I did get somebody who wanted it and who hired it. And I didn't want to tell Mr. Reynolds who it was, and I wouldn't tell Mr. Reynolds who it was, because I didn't want to see Mr. Reynolds again. But he took offense at that, and that really bothered him. And he asked me over and over again where this place was, and I wouldn't tell him. So we packed up the 1950 Dodge, and I rescued a cat, put a cat in the back seat who was forlorn, and I was short rescuing another cat because I found that kitten in the dumpster.
Aww.
Terrible land manager taking care of that. He headed in for that kitten.
Poor thing.
And the kitten was scared to death of him, and I should have rescued the kitten. And I came home one day, and there was that kitten dead in the dumpster.
Oh, no.
He purposely killed the kitten.
No.
Well, we go to Glens Falls, and the 1950 Dodge had a serious breakdown up on the country roads. Somehow or other we got to a town, and we got to a garage, and they were very capable. They were country people, but they fixed the 1950 Dodge, and it only delayed us an hour and a half or two. But by the time we got to Queensbury, which is where the TV head end was located, well, not really the office, the head end was elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was gone. This was a Saturday. Everybody was gone. So I called the number, and the man who owned the cable TV system was Robert Nolan. Mm-hmm. And he gave me the number of a technician, and a very friendly technician came over, and he opened the doors to my studio. They specially built it for me, and it was a sweet studio. It had a special inset desk. It had a nice double seat where you could interview people. It had a yellow carpet. It was a lovely piece of work. And it had an outside door. You didn't have to go through the building to get to the studio. You could go through an outside door. So we unloaded the equipment, and the technician was very friendly. And then we drove to Buffalo. It's a long ways from here. Well, Glens Falls is another 50 miles north of here, but Glens Falls is as far as from Buffalo as Albany is, honey. That's another 300 miles. But the 1950 Dodge made it.
Woohoo!
And we got to Buffalo about midnight. And we were living at Delavan Avenue then in Buffalo. Very nice apartment. I told you about that. And Monday I went back to Queensbury, Glens Falls. And I started making videos as fast as I could. Now, Robert Nolan was a lawyer, and he was a graduate of Worcester PI, Worcester Polytechnic Institute. I don't know where he went to law school. And he was a devoted Roman Catholic, brought up in Catholic schools. And I don't think I asked as much money from him as I did from George Reynolds, because he wasn't as wealthy as George Reynolds. I don't forgotten what the pay was. But being a lawyer, he made me sign a contract. Okay?
Of course.
And so I started video right away. But here's one reason he hired me. He wanted the franchise for two surrounding towns, Hudson Falls and South Glens Falls. And he thought by showing the people in those towns that he could do public access and he could have the mayor on TV because he had a public access producer. He thought by showing that to them that he would get the franchise. So the first thing he had me do was to interview the mayors. And there was a wonderful recall in Glens Falls and Queensbury of Glendora being on WRGB, General Electric Television, remember? And Glendora was very well loved in those areas. So Mr. Robert Nolan, this lawyer, got his way. He got the franchises. And so this was good. I loved the people up there. I love the rural atmosphere. I remember I was videotaping an affair, and one of the local government people says, "Glendora, you got to make a video of our balloon fair. We have these beautiful, beautiful balloons filled with hot air." And I said, "Are they Republicans or Democrats?" And then I went way up into the woods, to Warrensburg. You can't imagine how rural these places were. And to the Women's Sewing Club, where they were making pants for their husbands. It was just a darling atmosphere. Have I mixed you up with all your prompts, honey?
A little bit, but that's okay.
Can you find any that I missed?
Let's see. Interview the mayor.
Yep, we told you that.
Okay. Making TV shows.
Yep.
Robert Nolan.
What was that?
Robert Nolan.
Yep, Robert Nolan. He had a beautiful voice, and as I say, he was a sports addict, and he loved it when I went and covered St. Mary's basketball tournament. He loved it, all those things. And they had a winter carnival on Lake George. The big thing up around Glens Falls and Queensbury is Lake George. And they had a winter carnival, and they were worried that the ice wouldn't freeze over on the lake soon enough for Christmas. And so they called an Indian. There's an Indian reservation up there. And the Indian came and he did a special ceremony and a special meditation to make the ice freeze over.
Oh, wow.
And he said, "See, its ice has already started." And so we made it for the very thick ice for the winter carnival. And they had bulldozers there and car races and all kinds of concessions. And I said, and Robert Nolan covered that as the sportscaster for it. And I did the video. And I heard people talking, saying, the ice is beginning to crack. And I began to get a little nervous. And Robert Nolan didn't seem to bother him. He says, "What difference does it make whether we're here or not?" And that sort of scared me in a funny way. Mm-hmm. And I covered a golf tournament with him. And he says, "Here's so-and-so, our local dentist." And I told Robert Nolan that he should know a lot about a hole-in-one. And Robert Nolan says, "You see, I have to put up with this." Well, anyway, it was a great experience. But the year was up. First of all, have we got all the prompts?
Let's see. Golf match.
Yep, we did that.
Overnight parking.
Oh, this was interesting. I had a room in downtown Glens Falls with a very typical kind of person of that Adirondack territory. Very typical. And it came up this snowstorm, and I drove down from the TV station, and there was no parking on that street where this room was, and I didn't know where to park because of the snowstorm, so she called the police. And she said, I have a person here, a roomer, and she needs a place to park the car at night. Can she park on the street tonight? And they said yes. Wasn't that cute?
That is cute.
What else do we have, dear?
Going to Manhattan every Monday.
Oh, that's the big news. What are you doing about your career all this time? I've made a beautiful demo tape of Glendora's love of interviewing and jokes. It was terrific. And it should have been on NBC, ABC, or CBS any day. It was terrific. It was as good as Art Linkletter, even better than Art Linkletter. And I went down to Manhattan peddling this, trying to find somebody who would sponsor it, who would put it on network TV, and I mean coast to coast. And I would go down to Manhattan Monday and interview all kinds of people and meet all kinds of people. But never clicked. It never clicked. And one time on a trip to Manhattan, before 1990, I changed the oil on the 1990-50. I changed it to 30. And that car wasn't made for a 30 oil. It was made for 10, 20, what is it?
Mm-hmm.
And that ruined it. And so it had to be rebuilt, and I had to get back to Glens Falls somehow, and then I had to get to Buffalo by bus.
Oh, my goodness.
Wait for that car to be fixed. And it was fixed in a week or so. Well, folks, those are the adventures up in Queensbury, outside of Glens Falls, New York. In the year what, dear? What year is it?
1973 to 74.
And how old is Glendora?
45 to 46.
And do you have any jokes you can tell the people?
I sure do. How much to get married?
A wise guy in City Hall, a smart aleck, said to the city clerk, how much it costs these days to get married. She said $50 for the license and one paycheck every Friday the rest of your life.
Piano tuner.
A woman answered her front door and said to the man at the front door, I did not send for a piano tuner. And the man said, no, ma'am. The neighbors did.
Sing like a prisoner.
Oh, yeah. I sing like a prisoner behind 8 bars looking for the key.
Oh, no. Four carpenters.
I used to be able to sing, but as I got older, things changed position here. Things change position in your ears.
That's true.
And now I can't sing.
Four carpenters.
Oh, 4 carpenters all played the tuba, folks. So they formed a quartet. Do you know what they called it? Do you know, Stephanie? What they called their quartet, the 4 carpenters who played the tuba?
2x4s.
The tuba fours, right. Good for you, Steph. Got another one?
Yeah, St. Peter's.
St. Peter challenged the devil to a baseball game. St. Peter says, okay, I don't see how you can win. All of the good players are up here. And the devil said, the umpires are down here.
And donut shop.
A citizen was arrested for not paying his bill in a donut shop. He was charged with impersonating a police officer. So, folks, we packed up all the equipment and in the 1950 Dodge and off back to Buffalo we went. And this time we moved from Delavan Avenue because the man who owned the beautiful apartment building sold it. And the person who bought it wanted our apartment. So we went out to another place in Buffalo, 555 Linwood Avenue. To be continued, my dears.